Hello everybody and welcome to my Spring Boot tutorial where we're going to be talking about the REST controllers in Spring and how to use them. We're going to be continuing with the last Spring Boot application, with the last video where I showed you how to connect a PostgreSQL database to your Spring Boot application. So if you haven't watched that video, you should watch that one first. I'm going to leave the link down in the description. But what we've done in that video, so we configured the application.properties to work with our local PostgreSQL database. So we put the credentials here. Then we created a very basic model, a product model with its own ID, a name, and a description. Then we created a JPeer repository for that model, a product called product repository that extended the JPeer repository. And then we created a very simple testing controller where we mapped it to the product route. It was a REST controller, and it's a REST controller. That means that it will return JSON and receive JSON. And we put one get mapping. We injected the product repository here, and we put one get mapping that returns all the products. So that's what we have until now, and that's where we're going to continue from. So let's start the application, and let's see what's going to happen when we start the application. Now, while the application is starting, I'm going to be talking about the HTTP client that we're going to be using. So we're going to be using Postman to send our HTTP requests. Postman is a very convenient HTTP client that we can specify the method here. So it has a request section here. This is the first section here. This is where we can specify our method. So this is where we can specify get, post, put, patch, delete. This is where we specify the URL, and then we can send the request. We can attach parameters to the request. This will be the query parameters right here. We can attach authorization. We can attach our own headers or modify headers, and we can attach a body. So we can attach headers, authorization, body. The body could be JSON. We're going to be using that in our post mappings, but for now, we're just going to send a very simple get request to localhost 8080/product. So the application is started, and let's click send, and let's see what we're going to get back right now. So we are going to get the products back that are in the database. So we have a product 1 with ID 1, product 2 with ID 2. And as you can see, this one here is not sequential. The ID is 5. That's because I was testing it out. And while I was testing it out, I had product 3, product 4, but I deleted those to test how they delete. And that's why this product here is product 5 like this with the test. So that's why it's not sequential, and that's why I have it like this. But that's not going to be a problem because that's because we set the generation type of our ID to be automatic here, and that's why it's going to continue like that. So just to keep in mind, that's why this is like that, because I already had the product 2 and the product 4, and I deleted those. But now let's say that we would like to somehow get a specific product. Let's say I want the product with the ID 2 to be returned. Or let's say that I want the product with the ID 1, just that one returned. How shall we do that? So the most convenient way to do that is to send that ID as a pad variable with the request. And how do you send the pad variable? A pad variable is sent in the URL, so in the pad. And right here, let's say if I send 1, I would like this product returned. If I send 2, I'd like only this product to be returned. And how shall we do that? So we're going to get back to the IntelliJ, to the IDE, and let's try to implement this in our controller. So I'm going to stop the application. I'm going to close this down, and that's going to be still a get mapping. So it's going to be a get mapping, and it's still going to return a response entity. So I'm going to do a response entity, but this get mapping is going to get something, and that something is going to be an ID, a pad variable. And this is how you specify a pad variable in Spring Boot annotations. So you put a get mapping, and then you specify in this curly brackets, you're going to specify the ID here. Then I'm going to name the function as get one product. And then this is where we expect the pad variable right here with this annotation, pad variable. And then we're going to specify the type. The type is going to be long, and the name is going to be ID. It's very important, this ID here, to be the same as this ID. And then what you have to do, then you can do return response entity dot OK. And there's going to be a 200k, and we're going to do this.product repository, and we already have a method find by ID in our repository. So we're going to use that method to return our product. So what's going to happen here? We're going to be sending an ID here as a pad variable. We're going to be receiving that ID right here. This is how we specify that. So we're mapped at product, and then slash the ID here. So we're receiving the ID here, and then we're searching the repository for that ID, and we're returning that product. Now in a real scenario, you would use some exception handling here to see if that product exists with that ID. But for this demonstration purposes, we will just return the product. And then here we can do obviously a get, because this is an optional. So in order to get it out of the optional, we're going to do a get. Now let's run the application and let's see how does this work. Let's see if it works, and let's see what does it do. Does it return the product with the requested ID? So I'm gonna go into Postman right now. Let's get into Postman. And let's say I want the product with ID 1 returned only. So we're gonna wait for it to start, and that's exactly what we're gonna request. We're gonna request the product with the ID 1. Just wait for it to start here, and we should receive only that product. So I'm gonna click send right now. And as you can see, we're getting only that product. So only with the product with the ID 1. Now let's try to get the second product, so with the ID 2, and we should get that one. And I know that we have one with ID 5, so let's return that one. And it's gonna return that test product. So as you can see, this works. Now let's say that we want a route that's gonna be able to create a product. So let's get back to Spring. Let's get back to the IDE, and let's try to implement a post. So how would that look? So that will be a post mapping, and it will be mapped to /product. And we would have a body, a JSON body. I'm gonna click here on the raw, and I'm gonna click the type to be JSON. And in this body, we would like to have something like this, a name. I'm gonna just copy this. So the body will look something like this without the ID. And let's say we're gonna have like this, I don't know, testing, product, create. And I'm just gonna put the description to be the same thing. So testing, product, create, description. And let's just put capital D there. So, okay, I didn't mean to do that. So let's say we would like to send something like this, where we send some sort of JSON body and receive that on the backend, receive that on our server, and save it to the database. That's exactly what we want to do. So now these properties here have to be the same as defined in the model here. So if we have here name and description with all lowercase letters, that's exactly how we want them in the JSON. Now, if you would like to use something else into JSON, you can use an annotation called JSON property. And let's say I want a capital N here on the name. Let's say I want to use it like that in the JSON. So I could do this, and I could come here, and I could change this to a capital N here. And that's going to work perfectly fine. But for these purposes, we're going to leave it as it was, and I will remove this JSON property annotation from here. But that's how you would do it. That's if you have like multiple words in a variable. That's how you can manipulate them like that and have them different than the variable name here. But now let's continue. Let's continue with our route. So what shall we do? This should be a post mapping. So this should be a post mapping that's going to receive that body, and it's going to still return a response entity. We're going to return the product that's been created. So I'm going to just say response entity, and that's what we're returning. And I'm going to say create product. I'm going to name it create product. Now this is where it gets interesting. We're going to receive something, and the thing that we're going to receive is going to be request body. So that's exactly what we're going to receive. And out of what type? The type is going to be a product, and the variable name is going to be product. So this is how we receive a JSON body in Spring. Spring will receive the HTTP body, and it will automatically serialize it into a product object that we can then save to the database. So let's now write return, and let's say I'm going to return a response entity, and the status code is going to be 201. That's created. That's status code created. So 201, and I'm just going to say body, and in the body I'm going to use this.product repository, and we already have a method save in our JP repository that gets the object, and we're going to send the product object, and that's exactly what's going to happen. So this product will get sent through the body in the post message. We will receive that body right here with the request body annotation, and we will save it in the database right here and return the same object with status code 201. So let's run this and let's test this out and see if it works. We're gonna wait for the Spring application to start up right now, and let's see. So it's gonna start up in a second. And before we create the product, I'm gonna send a GET request just to see what we have currently in the database. And then afterwards, I will send the request, and we're gonna see that we're gonna have one more. So let's wait for it to start. There we go. So now let's send the GET request first. So we're sending first the GET request. That's not sending this body here. And as you can see, this is the products that we have. We have product 1, product 2, and product with ID 5 test. Let's now change this to a post request, and let's send this body actually and see what's gonna happen. And as you can see, we got the status code 201 created right here. And if I come back here, we have the product returned with the ID 6 here. So now let's try to get all of the products again. Let's try to get all the products. If I try to get all the products again, there should be one more product down here. And yes, there it is. There's our newly created product using our post route. So it's right there. I could obviously try this again. So let's just try it right now. Let's just try to go on post. Let's say I'm just going to be a second one. So I'm just going to say here 2. And I'm going to send this request. We're going to get it back with an ID 7, as you can see. And if I get all of the products again, I should have another product in the database right now. And there we go. We're having another product with ID 7. And that's perfectly fine. And that's exactly actually what we need. That's exactly what needed to happen. So we can use the post route to create products right now. Now, let's say we would like to update a specific product. Let's say we would like to update the product with ID 2, for example. Let's say I want to update this one, and let's say I want to use a put mapping. So how shall we do that? Let's say I want to send a body where I'm going to update the product to. So how shall we do that? So we should first send which product we want to update. That will be with this variable right here, obviously. And then we should somehow update that product, in the database, obviously, or in our, let's say, in our yes, in this case, in our database. So let's actually try to implement that. So that will be a put mapping, where I say I'm gonna update the product. I don't know, the product. Let's say I want to update this product too. So I'm gonna take this body. Let's say I want to update this product too, and let's say I wanna, and let's say I want to, for example, I don't know, product 2 updated like this, updated, and let's say the description also. Let's say I want to do this. And send this request, and this should update our product. So let's try to do this. So we're going to go back to our IDE. I'm going to stop the application. I'll come here and I'll put put mapping. And this put mapping will again receive a pet variable, and that pet variable is going to be an ID. And then I'm going to say it's going to be a public, and let's return the product that's going to get updated. So public response entity, I'm going to name it update product. We're again going to receive a pet variable here, long ID, and we're going to also receive the request body with the updated product. Request body product. Now, how shall we implement this? So this can be implemented in a couple of ways, but in this case, what I'm first going to do is I'm first going to take the product from the database that we want to update. So I'm going to say product.product, product to update. I'm going to name it. I'm going to say this.product repository find by ID, and I'm going to find this, and I'm going to say get. So this is going to get the product from our database. Now, what do you have to do? Now you have to update it. So I'm going to say product to update dot set name from the, and then we're going to set it with the name that comes from our body. So from our request. So product.get name. And I'm going to do the same thing for the description. Product to update dot set description to be product.get description. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this.product repository.save product to update. I'm just going to save that product. And now I could obviously return it here. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. Actually, I'm going to wrap this in a return response entity dot OK. And I'm just going to wrap this in OK block here. So it returns it. And so what should happen here? We should be able to send here a pet variable, for example, for the product 2. We should find that product in the database and update it with this information here. So we should update it with the information there. So let's say, for example, the product is going to get received here. We're going to get the product from the database. We're going to update it, and we're going to save it to the database and return it. So let's try this out and let's see if it works. Now, before I do anything here, I'll first get the product 2, just to see it how it is, and then we're gonna update it, and we're gonna get it again to see how it's gonna look. So that's gonna be the thing that we're gonna do right now. So let's wait for our application to start, and we're gonna test this out right now. So there we go, we're waiting for it to start. And let's wait for it to start, and we're gonna send the request. And when we send the request, first of all, we're gonna see how our product 2 looks like. So let's send a GET request just to check out our product 2. And there we go, this is our product 2. So it has an ID of 2, a product 2, and a product 2 description. Now I'm gonna send a put request with this body here to the product 2. So I wanna update the product 2. So I'm gonna send a put request. And there we go, status okay, and there we go, we're receiving back our product 2 updated. So now if I go ahead and get, not post, but if I wanna get the product 2, it's gonna be updated. As you can see, it's the updated product. If I get all of the products, it's gonna be updated there also. So there we go. Now it's gonna come to the bottom because that's how it does it, but it's updated. As you can see, it has the ID2 here, and it's updated. So that's working perfectly fine. And now another thing that we have to have here is a delete mapping. So let's say we want to delete a product with a specific ID. So, and get the deleted product back. So let's say that we want to have that scenario right now. Let's say I want to have a delete here, a specific ID, and I want to delete it. So that's what we're going to be implementing right now. So I'm going to come back here to our controller. I'm going to stop the application, and I'll put a delete mapping. So let's put the delete mapping right here, and this delete mapping will again receive a path variable. That path variable would be the ID of the product that we want to delete. And I'm just going to say this is going to be a public. And let's do a response entity. Let's return the deleted product. So response entity, and I'm going to say delete product, and it's going to receive a path variable, and it's going to be out of type long ID. So now let's try to return the deleted product. So before we delete it, let's first pull it out to the database. So let's say product equal product equals these.product repository dot find by ID, and let's send the ID here. So this is going to get our product, and then we have to get it because it's an optional. And now, so this is so we are going to be able to return the deleted product. So now let's call the this dot product repository dot delete by ID. There's going to be already a method delete by ID, and we're just going to pass the ID there. This is going to delete our product, and then we just return it just to give to the user which product was deleted. So I'm going to say delete right here, and I'm going to say response entity dot OK. I'm going to send OK, and I'm just going to put the product that we deleted in the body. And that's going to be fine. So let's run the application right now, and let's test this out and see if it works. So I'm going to run the application. I'm going to come back to Postman, and let's try to delete the product with ID 1. Let's try to delete this one here. So we're going to try to do that. And let's see. Let's wait for the application to start up. And when it starts up, we're going to try to delete the product with ID 1. And it should work. And let's try it right now. So once again, I'm going to do a get mapping just to get all of the products, just to make sure that they're there, just to make sure that it works. And then after that, I'm just going to try to delete one. So let's see. So there we go. We have all our products back right now. And let's delete this one here with ID 1. Let's say I want to delete that one. So I'm going to change the request to delete. And I'm just going to specify the product with ID 1. I'm just going to send the request. And as you can see, we got our product back. It was deleted. And then if I go ahead and try to get all of the products right now, if I try to get all the products, as you can see, products 1 not going to be anymore there. It's not anymore there. Let's try to delete the product. Let's try to delete the product 5 right now. I just try this out. So I'm going to specify product 5 here, and I'm going to send a request. We get it back here. That means it's successfully deleted. And I'm going to get back to get. I'm going to get all of the products, and we should not see it anymore there. And yes, it's not there. It's deleted. So that's going to be it for this video, everybody. So I hope you learned something new. I hope you learned how to use the REST controllers in Spring. Thanks for watching, and see you until the next one.